Let's start with that video of Meghan and Harry. It's got absolutely everybody talking. I kind of love it because I think it's really funny and warm, but they posted it yesterday to mark their daughter Lilibet's 4th birthday. Look, it's a throwback to her birth, showing the couple doing what was then, it was like a viral thing at the time, the baby mama dance in their maternity suite.
But I want to turn up.
If she a baby mama, she gon' do that baby mama.
Work.
She gon' put it on you. She gon' do that baby mama. Drop,
Drop it down, drop it down, down, low. Drop it down, drop it down, down, low. Drop it down, drop it down, down, low.
I mean, it's impressive, isn't it, to be fair? She's a great dancer. Not so sure about Harry. Broadcasters Celia Walden and Richard Coles are here. Good morning to both of you.
Morning.
Celia, what do you make of this? There is, of course, one thing is that it was just what I think lots of people who were pregnant at the time were doing this viral dance at the time. They've released it now post the we're leaving the media spotlight.
Yes.
So there's a bit of a...
you could say there's a bit of a gap there.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, it's quite hard to be scathing about a pregnant woman dancing because pregnant women are amazing and pregnant women dancing are even better. But I do think it made me laugh because a couple of weeks ago, my best friend and I literally had this discussion where we were saying she is this close to using the kids fully.
Yes,
and
how interesting.
You can see it coming because they're sort of in more and more videos and it's a slippery slope, I think, for mums, all mums in the public eye, because they have such value, and particularly hers, of course.
And relatability, Richard, is what it seems that Meghan really... well, I suppose craves, because she lives a life in a way that nobody can relate to. But relatability is what she's trying to sell.
Well, exactly. I think the problem is that if you are in a situation when you end up having to kind of monetize your life, even intimate aspects of your life, then you have to make some very tough decisions. And I think, again, what strikes me about this, there's this rather trusting view they have that we're all going to enjoy as they enjoy these insights into their private life, when a lot of the time you may be thinking, maybe that's not for public consumption. And that's a very fine line to tread, I think.
Yeah, I think we're going to see more and more stuff offered up for public consumption because as she gets sort of a bit more desperate to make people like her, you know...
Is that what you think it is? Rather than just a sort of... They're in that generation of just oversharing is a thing that everybody does anyway.
That is true, but I do feel with her very, very little is not premeditated, I have to say. I'm not sure how much he has to do with the decision-making. But I could be being very unfair. Perhaps he's fully in charge in that relationship.
But I mean, they have to fund a very lavish life. And I think their opportunities for earning the kind of money that you'd need to do to keep that show on the road are few. And the pressure then is on, isn't it, to always, if you're going to kind of feed the beast, what's the next tidbit you throw?
Yeah, and I think it's like, you know, sometimes I remember a celebrity sort of friend once saying, should I sell my wedding because I've been offered all this money?
Wow.
And she was really torn and the money kept getting bigger and bigger. And then in the end, she said, look, I'm just going to do it. No, but it was...
Well, I'm not asking you who.
No,
I'm not
asking
you
who. No, it was
how
way more than...
How many
well,
figures?
It was kind of, you know, like you could buy a house.
Where in the country could you buy a house?
A small one. But it was a lot of money and
how famous?
She was famous.
Scrap the show. And this is the only thing I want to know now.
The
all right, it was me.
It was Richard.
Go on.
And I said to Richard, you can do it, but you can't. You absolutely can never ever complain about your privacy again. So it's that thing. Of, you know, there's honestly no judgment, but you can't have both.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Well, we're talking of sort of maternity and the wider issues there of sharing those sort of intimate moments. Now, birth rates are down. And this leads me to the next topic we want to talk about, which is this new anti-dating trend. It's sort of on TikTok, isn't it, really? Called Boysober. And it's about women, essentially, young women, I think, predominantly, talking about celibacy and how they've sort of just had enough. And they're sort of saying, I just want a break from all of it.
Which I think every woman, obviously, can empathise with.
And men, maybe.
And men too, I think.
Yeah, probably men too. But I think the slight worry with this is I do think that generation have lived quite isolated lives in a funny way anyway because of technology. So I think that so much of what we think are relationships are not the relationships that I remember growing up with, where you were actually seeing the person and, you know, instead you're texting them or you're waiting for texts. And I'm not surprised they've been put off because it's a weird
There's
old...
a lot of disappointment, I think.
Yeah.
I think
I
people
just
experience disappointment and rejection, and they've sort of had enough of it.
I also talk to my nephews and nieces about it.
Yeah.
And the complications of dating now. It's like being an official in a Byzantine court, I think. Whether you're talking, whether you're exclusive, all those fine degrees of intimacy that we never had.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, you think of celibacy and you think of the church, don't you? And in America, I think there is a lot of sort of the Christian belt talk. You know,
Saving
young
yourself.
people are saving themselves, but here it's not that. It's not a religious thing, is it? But you've experienced some sort of...
Well, I was a sort of faux celibate, or a celibate monk or something. So I was obliged to live a celibate life with my late partner, David, because the rules of the church required us to do that. And at one point, we did sort of try to do that, but actually it became impossible because we wanted to have an intimate life together and love each other and all the rest of it. So in the end, we pretended to be celibate. We lied about it, actually.
To your employers?
Well, to a church that was
God,
hostile
you know?
to it. No, I don't think God had a problem with it at all. I think God wanted us to delight in each other and be happy.
Exactly.
But there was a sort of a thing with the church. And I'm not proud. I mean, I really don't think it's ever good to lie, but I felt in that case it became the lesser of the evils.
Absolutely.
I mean, there are lots of people who are genuinely called to live a celibate life, and good luck to them. But you can't really impose that on people, I think, if they're not willing to accept it. Interesting that more and more people seem to be fed up with the complications of dating or just the burden of kind of trying to conduct an intimate life. Good news is people still end up with somebody they love, having a life together, maybe having some kids.
And actually, there's something to be said for focusing on yourself for a bit rather than going from one relationship to another, to another, to another, and never quite learning what it is that you want or who you are or what your values are, because you're constantly trying to co-opt and try and fit in with someone else. Which I think women do
that, and I think you don't want to be a boy-aholic either.
Well,
but,
true.
But
sounds quite fun at times.
Yeah,
but
I say that.
Yeah.
But I think if it's through fear, if it's celibacy through fear of disappointment or unpleasant experiences, then I think that's a bit sad because you know that is what life is about. You're not everything, you know, and by experiences that don't work out, you end up hopefully with the person who is right for you.
Yes, exactly.
I have a friend and she thought that celibacy was just laziness. Yeah. There's people not pulling their
Can't be
finger
bothered
out.
to get dressed up and go out or
Exactly.
get undressed and stay in.
But it is, you know, I do think it does shake down the sort of, I mean, you know, the turmoil of your romantic life, particularly when you're young.
Yes.
There's always a turmoil, but it does seem to settle.
I also think, you know, there's so much pressure on getting a job, trying to pay for rent. There's so many pressures in one's mind at that age. Job security. You think, have I got time? Have I got the money for this? Have I got the energy to impress another person?
That is true. But I mean, it's meant to be a joyful experience.
Yeah, that's it.
So...
If you're not enjoying it, don't do it.
No, definitely not.
Yeah,
or
good.
reconfigure it. Try to figure out why something that should be bringing you joy is maybe not doing that.
Yeah, good. Now, the search for Madeleine McCann continues in Portugal this morning, close to where she disappeared nearly 2 decades ago. GMB's Richard Gaisford has been there all week. Is there anything that you can tell us this morning that gives hope, I suppose, for any breakthroughs?
Breakthroughs, no. The searching has certainly started. We can hear that behind us in these dilapidated farm buildings. No official word throughout this whole process from the German police who are leading this investigation alongside their Portuguese colleagues. They're investigating these ruined buildings in this coastal scrubland that lies a couple of kilometres to the east of Praia de Luz, where Madeleine McCann disappeared. It is slow and painstaking work, Ranvir. They are sifting through rubble and soil. Some of that's being bagged up. There have been diggers brought in to lift some of the heavy stuff out of the way. You hear chainsaws as they cut back vegetation. We've seen them looking into wells, pumping those wells dry so they can examine them more thoroughly. It is just very difficult, though, to know what progress they're making, but it seems to be very targeted, very much so based on information, perhaps cell phone data, and that's the same data that they used 2 years ago that led them to a reservoir to the north of here, where they searched not only the lake itself, but the scrubland surrounding it, knowing that their prime suspect, Christian Bruckner, had been there. And that's, again, why they're looking where we are here today. That cell phone data put him in Praia de Luz on the day that Madeleine McCann disappeared back in May 2000. 2007. He, of course, a man who's currently in jail in Germany, and that for an awful case where he was found guilty of raping an elderly woman in Praia de Luz. He gets released from that jail sentence sometime in September, we understand. Police doing all they can as quickly as they can to gather evidence if they're able to build another case against him.
Yeah, Richard, you said it's painstaking and they're sifting through the soil, but presumably they're using quite a lot of high tech, really, also to speed up the search in a way that they couldn't have done even perhaps 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, so the high tech comes in on that triangulation of cell phone data. They've got much better at that. That's led them to specific sites. There will be forensic analysis going on both here and in Germany of those soil samples that they're taking. But they also have ground penetrating radar around there. And we understand once that rubble is out of the way, they get more of a smooth surface within these ruined buildings. They're then able to look underneath the soil to see, quite sadly, whether anything's been buried there.
Gosh, and can you just give us a sense of what the mood is? I mean, people live there, they work there in Praia de Luz. What's it like out there?
We've been into Praia de Luz, as you would expect, and have been coming and going from there for the last 18 years. I have to say it's changed quite dramatically in that time. Obviously, when Madeleine first disappeared, there was the shock, and then over the years that followed, you know, development after development, people wanting answers. Those times, you would see pictures of Madeleine everywhere, the yellow ribbons tied around the trees, the church was a focus. Now, absolutely nothing. Nobody really wants to talk about Madeleine McCann in Praia de Luz anymore. I think some of the locals here are a little upset about some of the disruption that's been caused by this renewed searching. It has, though, become a fact of life for them over 18 years that periodically the police will return looking for something new, but you do get a sense that this really is the last throw of the dice.
All right, Richard Gaisford, live in Portugal for us this morning. Thanks so much. And that's a wrap for this video. We hope you enjoyed it. We have all the best moments from the show right here on the channel. And if you like this video, then we think you'll love this one. See you next time.